Okay, here we are. This is the book series, the final book of the book series. Although it's not the final event, we'll revisit the books. But this is the fifth book, and we started with Stick Control, and then we did Portraits of Rhythm. Then we did Accents and Rebounds. And then last week we did Syncopation, and this week we're doing Master Studies, and that's the end of the series. And then I'll start revisiting the other books. So it's going to take more than one sitting. It's going to take more sittings than I can do to really get through everything in those books. But today is Master Studies, and Master Studies is part of, I consider it a family of books. I use it as a family. It starts with Stick Control by George Stone, and his student was Joe Morello. And working with Joe, Mr. Stone was inspired by some of Joe's experimentation, and wrote a book called Accents and Rebounds and dedicated it to him. And then Joe continued the process later on. After Mr. Stone passed, and wrote a series of Master Studies, Master Studies original, and then he did a part 2. He did a Master Studies 2 before we lost him. Anyway, so this is like a continuation of the Stick, just like a combination of Stick Control and Accents and Rebounds combined. Now, yeah, this is the first page, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of the book before we really get into this. So let's just take a look at the. This is the cover. That's what the cover looks like, and I have my copy here, so I can read if I have to. And then the second page, the title page, of course. Here's the title page, and which tells us that the original printing was in 1983. It was a reprinting in 2000. This agrees with my copy, so this is the only published copy. You know, there isn't a reissue. There was a reprinting, not a reissue. Okay, and then he gets into, well, there's an introduction. Well, before we get into that, and then there's the contents, just to show you what kind of stuff he's going through. You know, there's the introduction by Jim, and then there's a preface by Joe. And then there's accent studies, buzz roll studies, stroke combinations, control studies, fill-in studies, ostinato, flams, and then a nice biography at the end with a nice set of pictures to look at. Okay, so we're going to start in the beginning with the accent studies, eighth note accents, with accents. But before he gets into that, there's the intro by Jim, which is a lot. Now, Jim has a lot to say, so I'm not going to read this to you. I suggest you get a copy of the book and read it for yourself. But it's a very nice piece of material from Jim, and that's definitely worth a read. And then he follows that with his own preface on technique and using a metronome. And it's a lot of stuff to read. I really wish you would read this. I'd love to read it to you. I think it would be too boring for me to just sit in here. It's not a radio show. So, anyway, have a read. It's worth it to see what Joe says about technique and what he says about using the metronome. And then, finally, he gets into the first page, but the first page is an explanation, again, of the exercises and how to use them. I'll show you that. So his first section is Eighth Note Studies with Accents. And obviously he likes to, he always encouraged me, and he liked it when I would take the stuff on the page and I would find alternate ways of using it, or be creative with how I applied it, or the number of repeats, or anything I did to rearrange things or do it in a slightly different way. He was very encouraging. And he encourages several different things to be done. Just as an example to begin with, you can see that he gives you the example of the exercise, and then he gives you this fill-in example. He does a whole section on fill-ins later, but this is how he introduces them, basically, and you could just he adds the resting hand to the multiple strokes to make a 16th note pattern out of it. I'll show it to you when we get to it. And then and he gives you a second example of how it is on the page, and then the fill-in example that he suggests. Then he suggested to do it in a triplet format, use the sticking and accenting, but in a triplet foundation instead of an eighth note foundation. So these are only the beginning. Just the first blush of what they look like, and then once you learn them, then you take it from there. And that's just the starting point. I will read you what he's saying here about the exercising, because I think it's important to know his point of view. And again, this book was meant to be used by anybody with any technique. These are just exercises. There's no specific technique written into the material. They're just exercises that could be used by in many different ways. But he has a methodology that he learned from Stone and developed along the way himself, and that he taught to me. And I really would like to present the way he used the book personally. And so I'm going to read you what he said. This section combines alternate stickings with one-handed stickings. This is sort of like what we did in stick control with the exercise, which is alternates, and the one hand, which is a vamp in between the exercises. Now he's bringing those concepts together with accents. While stressing accents, the section combines alternate stickings and one-handed stickings while stressing accents. It is essential to maintain only 2 dynamic levels in each exercise. So maintain your dynamic levels, whatever they are. And they should remain the same from beginning to end. And there's only 2 of them: the accented level and the unaccented level. Also, be sure to keep an even sound when moving from alternate strokes to one-handed strokes and vice versa. Following is a list of suggestions for different ways to play this section. Play without accents. Make sure each stick sounds the same as though the exercise is being played with one hand. This is the stick control way of playing things. And then vary the dynamic level between the accent notes and the unaccent notes. For example, unaccent notes at piano, accented at mezzo forte. 2 unaccented notes at mezzo forte, accents at forte. 3 unaccented at mezzo piano, accents at double forte. There's a different relationship between the loud and soft notes. Not just loud and soft. It's loud and soft at any particular level in the dynamic arc. When one-handed stickings are used, fill in 16ths with the opposite hand. Play as triplets. These exercises can also be applied to the drum set. Play all the previous suggestions while playing various patterns on a bass drum and hi-hat, for example. Play accented notes on tom-toms, unaccented on snare, various patterns on bass and hi-hat, rights on foot on bass drum, lefts and left hand on snare, right hand play eighth notes on ride cymbal, hi-hat on 2 and 4, interpret eighths style, rights on bass, lefts on snare, jazz, right on ride cymbal, hi-hat 2 and 4, play on double bass drums. And then he says these are only a few of the many ways these exercises can be played. Try to find ways to apply these exercises to your own situation and your own needs. Remember, these exercises only have value if they're applied in a musical way. Okay. And I'll give you the next page I've been reading from, which begins the book with the first page of exercises. And there's the stuff on the drum set I just wrote, and here's the exercises. And what he's talking about, let me explain this. Okay, so he's talking about without accents. So this is number 1 without accents. Right? That's stick control. I mean, even number 2. Is number 23 from page 5. Number 3 is a triple paradiddle sort of into a vamp. The other way. Right? So that's the first thing. A couple of pages of nice stick control kind of patterns. But these are really 2-bar patterns. These are longer than... George wrote some towards the end. 70, 72, 71, 70. Those are 4-bar patterns. But these are all 4-bar. Not 2-bar patterns. Okay, so the next thing you do is play it with an accent. So there's a couple of ways to play it with an accent. To use the methodology, free strokes were used in stick control, and I demonstrated that type of stroke. It was defined by George Stone, free. And that was the level. I started with the level at being full, and then we changed the level to half. It's still free. And that's all we talked about was free. Then we had a break, and I did Portraits of Rhythm, where we dealt with some musical phrasing and that kind of stuff. When I came back to Axis of Rebounds, I had to talk about the other kind of stroke that George defined, which was the control stroke, where you change positions. That's all this is. I can control it from going from a high position to a low position, which changes my my preparation for the next stroke. So I'm preparing for a soft stroke. Loud stroke. I'm now ready for a soft stroke. And the upstroke does the opposite. So when I'm playing a soft stroke, I want to play a loud stroke, I have to prepare. You notice there's no difference in the sound. Because the level of the stroke comes from where I start. Where I end up doesn't matter to that stroke. It only matters to the next stroke. The next stroke is going to be loud because I'm in a different position. In the same position, the next stroke should be the same sound. So what the control stroke does is allow us to go from loud to soft. Back to loud to soft. Back to loud. But we always have to do that on the previous stroke so that we're where we're supposed to be. If we try to play soft from here, it's going to be loud. If we play loud from here, it's going to be soft, no matter what, relatively. We play it a little softer if I throw it slower at a high. But I can never really play it as soft as I can from a low position. And I can throw it faster from a low position, try to make it a little bit louder. But I can never throw it as fast as I can from a high position. But the idea is to hit the same positions. So then, because he talked about the accents being the same level. So the positions have to be in the same level. So whatever it is, and he talked about different levels. It doesn't have to be one specific level that you work with. You start with a full level because that's where it begins. We do a full and a half, just as an example. But it also could be a full and a quarter, or a full and 7/8. But the accent gets less defined. What really defines the accent, though, is the accuracy of the level that we maintain for the volume that we want to create. And the control strokes help us get in and out, and that's sort of what we did. And this is the foundation, the wrist foundation. Everything comes from the wrist, so we learn to use all this wrist stroking to play with. And that's the way Joe meant the book to be learned. But that's not really where it ends, because the methodology goes on to add arms once there's facility with the wrists. Not to replace the wrist, but to additionally add another part of the body to work with the wrist. And you can also do that with these, just like in accents or rebounds, where you can do a control stroke. And then you can start adding arm strokes to that after you learn to use your wrist properly. The same thing here. Except that he's saying that it doesn't have to be full and half. It could be half and quarter. It could be here. This could be a loud stroke, and this could be a soft stroke. Or this could be a loud stroke, and this could be But to maintain that is what he's talking about. Whatever it is, I'll do it this way. And the same thing when you're moving from this, what I call the stage one. The first two strokes are stage one and number one. The singles to the stage two. This is all stick control. This is the whole object behind stick control, is to make it nice and even beyond the sticking. And when you change heights, you change them in a consistent way, and you keep the levels even from one height to the other. And you can adjust the dynamic to the relative level of heights and relationships between the high and low sound that you like. So how does that work? How does a control stroke work? Okay. How does this look? I mean, you got to play a loud stroke with both hands. So I'm going to start like that. I have to, right? They're both loud. Now, the right hand, I want to stay down because I got to play some taps afterwards. Left hand, I don't want to stay down because I got to play another accent right afterward. But it's a long way away. But the object is to be prepared as soon as possible. Yeah. It's just a learning thing, right? So I'm going to throw the same kind of sound, but look what happened. I had one was a control stroke, one was a free stroke. And I got a bunch of taps to complete the chord. Then I got 4 more. I only played 3. There's 1 more left. So I want it to sound the same, but I got to get ready for that right coming up. Well, I'm back up in my double whammy position. Now I can do it, but now it's the opposite. Now on the left hand, I want to do a down stroke because I'm going to play a bunch of taps on the left side. And the right hand, I'm going to play the same sound, but I got to get ready for the next right on the repeat of the pattern. And I got a bunch of taps. And get ready. And here I am at my starting position again. So get it? Down here too, same thing. Okay? Doesn't matter. It's the relationship, and keep being able to be consistent about the level is what he's talking about. So when you play it without an accent, play it with an accent, play it with a loud, and I read it to you. All different levels of accenting between the accent, or different relationships between the loud and the soft note, and different dynamic levels of the accent overall in the arc of the dynamic. And then he starts talking about things like fill-ins. And all that is when you're playing the instead of staying up here, well, see, that we're already leaving this. Because I can't stay up there if I'm doing a roll, so. The idea was to get up here for the 2 hits and stay down there. For the fill-in. So number 2, we add an additional accent to this, which causes a problem. So number 2, sticking is this. And the accent is this. Let me do it slow. So I gotta start like this because I got a strong hand. Got a strong accent on the right, and I got a tap on the left. So the right's going to be a strong accent, but I'm going to play another strong accent on the right afterwards. So it's going to be a free stroke. Maintain that loud level. Then I got a tap. And I can't stay down there because the next tap is going to be an accent too. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to free, and I'm going to up. And now I'm ready to do my... But I got to go down on the right hand because I'm going to play taps. I got to go up on the left. I got to go free on the left hand to get ready for the next accent. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Next one. Yeah. See, that problem, when you hit that fill in, you don't have that time for the preparation. It makes your preparation space a lot shorter. You put that fill in. It's the opposite. You can't use that full stroke to stay up there. You got to go down. The last one. Now, up to now, I've been talking about wrist strokes. And this is the way he wants you to do. He wanted you to do it. That's the way he taught me. He taught me wrist strokes, and used my wrists. And then I learned how to do that. I could play accents the way I wanted to, and they sounded good. I had control over them. I could place them where I like. If I had a problem, I could work it out fairly quickly. And then we got into arms. Now, arms is another discussion. For accents and rebounds, and for stick control. And I did the same thing with accents and rebounds. I presented them in control stroke form for beginners. And then I showed where it goes when you get to the arm stage. With the understanding that you need to develop your wrists first before you jump into the arm thing, because it's a lot of fun to jump into the arm thing. It's easier, it's more fun, and there's a little more facility involved. And the tendency is to jump over all of the discipline work and doing the fun stuff right away. And you get a result, and the instant gratification of it is wonderful. You see immediate results from where you were. But if you don't do the wrist work, the preliminary foundation building, then there's something missing in the dynamics, and some of the things he talks about are not there. For instance, being able to move that dynamic around through the arc, and to be able to adjust the dynamic between the tap and the accent within that dynamic structure, whatever structure you're working with, whatever level you're changing to, and having that kind of control. Well, that stuff comes from a good foundation, and the arms help that when working in conjunction with the wrists. But without the wrist foundation, the arms can supply what you need, but it's not a complete set of tools. And the arms themselves have more than one tool. You know, you get into the danger of thinking that if you learn the Moeller method, then you have done the arm work. And that's not true. The Moeller method is the major part of the arm work, without a doubt. But it's not all of it. And it's not possible to do accents and rebounds entirely using just Moeller. You can using just wrists. I mean, it was designed to be done with wrists only originally, and arms added to it. We can add arms to it, but we have to add more than one kind of arm stroke. And one of the arm strokes is the forearm stroke, which is really based on the free stroke, which is based on the wrist stroke that's happening underneath. So we're really just supporting with our arms whatever stroking we're trying to accomplish with our wrists. We're assisting that particular kind of stroke with the kind of arm motion we're using. And Moeller is a majority of it. You have to have the Moeller, or the whip. I shouldn't call it Moeller because I wasn't taught that way. It's not what I was taught. I was taught the whip. But we talk about the Moeller so that we can all talk about it. So we all are talking the same language, although it's two different teachers, two different methods, really. I mean, it's the same original material. I mean, from the culture. You know, so all technically all has the same elements, but we all teach it differently. We all have our own way of applying it. including myself. I mean, I don't teach it and play it exactly the way I learned it. I don't think Joe. I think Joe added stuff that he learned from other teachers. I think that happened. There was stuff passed from Moeller to Chapin, and I'm sure Chapin added some of his own. And the same thing happened with Famularo when he studied with Chapin. But the essence, I think, is all the same with this accent, this arm accent. But the arm accent is defined by a dual motion whip action, which gives you an upstroke, and a forearm free stroke action, which you don't need an upstroke for because you're already up there. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's apply arms to what I just showed you. Instead of now remember that this is in addition to what I just did. Not only is my wrist going to do what I just showed you with my wrist, but now I'm going to add my arms to what my wrists are doing. So my wrist is going to do everything you saw before is going to happen. But it's going to look a little different because the arms are going to put in some added motion on some of the strokes, and you're not going to be able to see the wrist motion clearly, but it's really the same wrist stroke that I'm always doing, except I'm adding some momentum and motion with my arms that wasn't there before. And it begins with it starts from up here. There's 3 pivots. I'll go through it. It's 3 pivots. It's a pivot at your shoulder, and these are fulcrums. Every rotation, every motion in your body is a rotation. I don't care what you move, it's rotating. And it has an axis, and it has a fulcrum, which is the axis. Okay, so the fulcrum for your shoulders here, and it moves this way, right? And here's the center of the rotation. And then you have a rotation here, it rotates this way. Right? And you have a rotation here, it rotates this way. You have a rotation here, it rotates this way. And the stick itself is rotating. Everything is rotating. So it has to be in rhythm. It has to be in the right time of the rotation, the right moment in time. Whatever. So we start here, we start with this, it lifts this up. And automatically changes our forearm position, drops the wrist. Just picking our wrist, just picking the elbow up here. Right? Which is a preparation. Then when we bring the elbow in, we're going to pull the arm up. When it comes back in. So this back and forth is setting me up. That's my upstroke. Whoop. But it's not a separate motion now. It's not part of a stroke. It's part of the motion of getting ready for whatever accent I'm playing. And I don't know how much time it's going to take. I don't know how much time I have to do that, depending on the tempo and depending on how many accents I got to play. But all I know is I got to do this. And I got to prepare, and I need a certain amount of time to do it smoothly or to get it up to that height. Right? So that's what I'm doing. So, and then the next one is... So that's the second pivot here, and then I'm going to pivot back downward with this momentum, right? Because this has weight, and this has inertia, and this has force behind it, and this is starting to send the motion down. And then I got this part of my arm also moving and also creating inertia, sending that forward, pushing everything, sending all this energy down into my wrist. And then my wrist is going to take it, it's going to transfer it to the stick by rotating the way the stick wants to rotate, and transfer that energy into the acceleration of the stick coming down, plus all of this physical inertia that's coming behind it. And because I'm not using 2 separate strokes for up and down, my up and down has become 1 stroke, so now my preparation distance is twice as long as my full stroke was. My full stroke was here. I had 18 inches to accelerate. Now I got more. Now I'm at half stroke level, I got another 13 inches to add to the 18 to accelerate in. So I'm adding speed. I'm adding mass and momentum and inertia, and I'm adding also more height by doubling the motion involved. Instead of just, It's like when you wind up to make a pitch, or you wind up. Softball. Up, down. But that's only good for one. And one is good. So we need to do. So really all we need to do, the arm thing, is this. You see the way I had to time that? The right has to be slightly before the left. And then I have to do it, then I have to reverse that. It's all about preparing my weight and setting everything in motion. And timing, it's a dance. It's choreography. And the rest of the stuff takes care of itself. I mean, it's on top of this. And on top of this. Now I have a lot more facility because I can let go really. I don't have to, and there's a lot of physical momentum I'm working with, and I don't have to work very hard. So I can do it faster. I can place the levels wherever I want them, and I can keep them there. And I'm using my arms and my wrists. And when I reach a certain speed, I'm adding my fingers, but we're not up to that yet. Now the second one immediately confronts us with the problem of, well, what happens the second time you want to hit the accent if you're doing molar or whip? Yeah, I mean, if you're using arms, then what do you do for number 2? This. Well, that works. Well, what happens when you speed that up? Wow. Doesn't work very well when you got 2 in a row. And you remember when we got 2 in a row, we used a free stroke. We didn't use a downstroke. Right? So if I got 2 in a row, I should do the same thing with my arm. I should let it come back. Well, now we got the issue of, all right, so now I got all this momentum in the first one. So now we have a loud and a soft accent. Oh, no. That's not going to work. So we got a free stroke with our forearm too. We got to keep the forearm in motion, so that our mass remains. And I'm getting a phone call. Hello, Philip.
Hello, Alan Kerman, my old friend. How are you, dear?
Okay, listen, I'm online broadcasting right now, a master class. So are you going to be home later today?
Please call me later.
In about maybe a half an hour or so.
Sounds lovely.
All right, call you back. Thank you. Bye. Sorry, this my. You're in my home with me, and you have to put up with whatever happens. All right, so so what I'm doing is I'm free stroking my forearm. No, I'm not just free stroking my wrist. So if I free stroke my forearm, now you have to remember that you're not grabbing the stick at all. I'm just adding some more mass to whatever it is I'm doing instead of just using the weight of my wrists. I can add the weight of my arm. And I can get this started with the first one, and then I'm up there. See my wrist my elbow go in and out once I'm in? It's the same motion I'm using for the whip, but the whip is more pronounced because I have to get it up there to first. And notice now there's no difference because I didn't change my mass for the second one. I didn't lose the mass I was using for the first one. So I kept the mass in motion. But I didn't jam my hands down. You still got to keep your hand open. So now I can do this. Which I can speed it up. I added fingers. Yeah, I mean that's where it goes. First you learn to use your arms with your wrists. And then we add the fingers. And all of a sudden we're using our arms and our wrists and our fingers at the same time. It's not one or the other. And that's so I'm using two different arm strokes. I'm using a whip and a forearm. Here's a I'm doing extra forearms. I'm doing it. I'm doing a really even a better combination of the wrist level system and the forearm system. I'm staying up the way Joe wanted you to, and I'm still using my whips and forearms, and I'm staying up at the same time. Okay, next one. But I can do it two ways now, at this speed. Right, so I'm using two whips. But I could use a whip and a full. That's two whips. But I'm using a full with my forearm, and I'm not doing... I'm doing... But my hand's wide open. Number 5 is really cool. All whips. One of my favorite fill-ins. Oh, this! If you don't look at this, it sounds like right. But you don't really realize how difficult this sticking is until you do the fill-ins, and it really makes it stand out. Watch this. So, I mean, they become different exercises. As you do them differently, the challenge gets harder. And the solutions get more difficult. And this is only the first 5. I'll give you one more page. I mean, I do this stuff through, and in the tech talk, when people don't ask me anything, or there's no interaction going on, I pull this stuff up and I just do it for myself. And you can see me do this, literally, the way I do it for myself. And I'm explaining it, and I'm not really showing you where it goes, but so here's page 2. I mean, it's like 6 pages of this stuff. Again, this looks easy. It's an inverted 23. Now, okay, let's play it faster with a whip. With fillers. The next one is so like this. We did this before, but this is the inversion of this. We did it earlier. Next one. Yeah. Great stuff. That's it. That's enough. Thank you. for watching. I'll stop showing off. I don't do this. Just come and watch me do this stuff normally without trying to impress anybody. Thank you. Book series. Master Studies. Joe Morello. Online streaming with After Hours on the Sue Network. Short code. Social network address. Invitation to join the network. Join my network on Sue. Use my short code. ZETZER. Zetzer. With the same www.tsu.co/. And you'll join my network on Sue. There's the Art of Drumming group that sponsors these events, which is presented by the After Hours streaming. But you can't just join the After Hours group. You have to be a member of Sue. So you have to join one of the networks first. To use an invitation, join somebody's network, and you can join us on Sue and on the Art of Drumming. Okay. And I'm gonna go. But before I go, I'm gonna remind you guys. Very important. I want you to keep practicing. All right.